What if I told you there was a way for you to create long-term financial security that would not require you to work extra hours or take on a second job? The only requirement is that you currently own a home. Now, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not a 3 easy payments program, but it is possible, and I want to show you how. So this whole process starts with home equity. So what is home equity? Home equity is essentially what the average market value is at any given time minus whatever debts you owe on that property. So say, for example, your home is worth $500,000. And currently you only have one mortgage, and that mortgage is $300,000. So you take that $500,000 minus the $300,000, that means you have $200,000 in home equity. Now, if we look at factors that could affect that home equity increasing or decreasing, first, we look at the mortgage. On the mortgage side, that's not really going to change. If you make large payments towards the principal to bring that balance down, that could increase your home equity, but the mortgage outstanding balance isn't going to fluctuate on its own. However, on the value side, you have things like market conditions. An appreciating real estate market will bring that value up, which will bring your equity up. Same with a depreciating market. If the market depreciates, now you're going to see some of that equity disappear. But you also have things like home improvements. Now, home improvements are a great way to increase equity. You do have to be careful to make sure that you're doing the right home improvements depending on how long you'll be in the property. Not all home improvements will give you an increase in your value right away. Sometimes it takes several years to recapture what you spent on that home improvement. But it is a way to increase the value aside from just waiting for market conditions to increase the value. Now, you can let that equity grow and not do anything with it. And eventually, when you sell the house, that equity will come out and you'll use that equity to purchase another home. But there are some strategies that you can use to help that equity work for you. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. One strategy is you could take that money out and use it to help purchase rental property. And then over time, you will have 2 properties that appreciate with that market value, 2 properties that have growing equity that you can tap into. So how do you access your home equity? Well, one option is an equity loan. An equity loan is a lump sum payment. You need to decide how much money you have. You would have a cap of 80%. On all of these equity loans, the max that they will give you typically is about 80% of your equity. If you have $100,000 in equity, the max they'll give you is $80,000. With the equity loan, though, you have to decide how much of that $80,000 do you want to borrow? And you have to decide that up front. One reason to do an equity loan would be to have a fixed rate mortgage. Not all equity products are fixed. A lot of them are variable, but with the equity, you'll be able to get a fixed rate to have a predictable payment over the repayment period. Now, the HELOC, or home equity line of credit, is like a credit card on your house. The max amount that they'll give you is still around 80%. So that $100,000, the max line of credit would be $80,000. However, you don't have to decide how much money you're going to use. You only use what you need. So different than the home equity loan where you have to decide up front, do I want $50,000, $60,000, $70,000? The home equity, you may get that $70,000 or $80,000 line of credit, only use a certain amount of money, and then that rest of it just sits there. You don't have to pay back that amount that you didn't use. Now, on the HELOC, there's usually a draw period. They'll give you 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 years of draw, depending on the program. And during that period, you can withdraw from your equity and there'll be interest-only payments. So the payments are very, very low at the very beginning. After that draw, the repayment period starts, and then the payment will go up to interest plus principal. Having that interest-only payment at the very beginning does make it a little bit easier to fit in your budget, especially when you're trying to do something like buy your first rental property. Now, the cash-out refi is also a lump sum payment. It is an equity loan and a refinance rolled into one. So you would refinance your property, get it at a lower rate mortgage, but then also tell your loan officer, I want to refinance with $50,000 of my equity pulled out. So you would have that refinance one mortgage, but what's different is at the closing, you'd get a check for $50,000. Now, this option is only good if you're going to refinance to a lower rate. If you already have a low rate on your mortgage, then this option is probably not the best option for you. You should be looking at either the equity loan or the HELOC. So the next step is researching the rental market. You want to look at what the popular rentals are in your area. If you're down in the Florida area, you're probably looking at condominiums. If you're looking at the Midwest, you might be looking at single families. If you're looking at West Coast, you might be looking at Airbnbs. You want to see what the trend is in your area to find out where the highest demand is for rentals. Now, after you've figured out what type of rental, whether it be a year-round lease, short-term, or Airbnb style monthly rent, and you've figured out what type of home, whether it be a single family, condominium, or multifamily, then your next step is to figure out the financial data. You want to look at the average cost to acquire one of these properties. How much does it actually cost to buy one of these properties? You want to take into consideration, do you want to buy this property and fix it up? Do you want to buy this property turnkey? But you need to know ahead of time what the average cost is to acquire that type of property, and then what the average rent is for that property. So if you're looking at a 3-bedroom ranch in your neighborhood, in your area, you want to know, okay, well, how much does that cost to buy today? And how much is it going to rent for? When you're looking for properties, you want to look for properties that are the highest demand properties. Now, this can be done by going on the different websites, the Zillows and the Redfins, to see what is the most common style of rental. If you see the same type of 3-bedroom ranch or 2-bedroom condo or 4-bedroom home, 2-story, whatever is common in your area, those are the types of properties that you want to try to buy. Now, I just wanted to take a quick second to let you know that I am connected to thousands of real estate agents across the country. I have built relationships with these agents over the last 25 years, and so I'm connected with the ones that are the best in the industry. So if you are thinking about selling or buying or know someone that is thinking about moving, click the link down below in the description box. There'll be a short form to fill out. I'll get in touch with you and connect you with one of the top agents in the country that will take great care of you. Now, once you have all of that data and you have all that information, now it's time to talk about the financials. The very, very first step before you start looking at properties, scheduling appointments, doing anything, once you have that data, you need to start at home first. So you want to look at your home budget. And then after you've done that budget process and you've listed every possible expense on the home side, now you need to do that on the landlord side. Everything from your equity loan repayments to your taxes, your insurance, utilities, landscaping, upkeep, repairs. Some of those things can be passed on to the tenant depending on the situation, depending on what's customary in your area. You want to be prepared for the unexpected. Just like at home, if the roof leaks, plumbing leaks, you want to have money for it, you'll want the same for the rental. And the reason why you want to look at those landlord expenses now is that when you start looking at properties, you're going to be looking at what the cash flow is on every property. And cash flow is essentially what the rental income is minus your expenses. And if you have those landlord expenses listed ahead of time, you'll be able to figure that out, calculate that out pretty quickly. You look at a particular property, whatever that cash flow coming in is, whether it be a monthly rent, seasonal rent, Airbnb, you have those landlord expenses adjusted for that property. So obviously the expenses based on, is the tenant paying for upkeep, is the tenant paying for landscaping, tenant paying for utilities on that particular property. You can take those out and then you'll be left with either a positive or negative cash flow. Now, when you're buying your first rental property, at the very, very minimum, you want to break even cash flow. Absolutely, a positive cash flow is fantastic. Negative cash flow, steer clear. Doesn't matter how much you love the property, doesn't matter how much potential it has. You really want to be careful on a negative cash flow because it doesn't give you any wiggle room if something were to happen and you had an unexpected repair or unexpected expense on that property. Now, you may look at what your down payment is to increase that cash flow. Maybe it's a break even, but if you put 30%, 40% down payment because you have the available equity, and then with that larger down payment, the equity repayment still allows you to have a positive cash flow, $100, $200, $300 a month. There are some great options online, cash flow calculators, cash flow spreadsheets that are super helpful in figuring this out. So you've looked into the types of rentals for the area. You've figured out what the average rent is for those rentals. You've looked at your home budget, You've made a list of what the landlord expenses are. You've looked at the cash flow on the property. What are the things that you have to take into consideration? Well, one thing that you want to make sure after you've done all of this is that you still have a safety net just in case things go sideways. You have a tenant that doesn't pay, and you have a gap in your rental income, or you have a very large repair that wasn't expected. A safety net is huge, and you may have a HELOC and use that HELOC as part of that safety net, but you need to have something to help you cover those mortgages just in case it doesn't go according to plan. Another consideration is to look at the legalities of being a landlord in your area. What are the things that are required in your area for landlords? Things like tracking deposits, tracking incoming rental payments, disclosures made to incoming tenants, fair housing laws, all these things you want to make sure that you're covered and don't open yourself up to a lawsuit. I highly, highly recommend checking in with a local real estate attorney in your area. That would be a great resource to let you know exactly what you should be looking for. And lastly, if you have a financial advisor, I would absolutely recommend you check in with them. Tell them what you're trying to do, give them all the information on your home budget, all the expected expenses on the landlord side for a particular property, and find out what makes sense for your particular situation. Owning real estate is the single best way to build financial wealth. Historically, real estate values have always grown faster than any stock market investment. It's a great way to set yourself up for the future. Now, if you want more information on how to increase your home value, which will increase your home equity, check out this video. I'm Jen Sylvester, and I'm here to make you a savvy home seller.